Hello and welcome to the Trusted Advisor Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Jacoman, and I am joined today by my other co-hosts, Laura, Ryan, and Devin. Welcome to our very first show. What we're going to learn today is, number one, we're going to talk about the big reason why we're doing this show, but also you're going to get the number one thing and reason why you may need to rethink the way you're looking at your trusted advisor relationships, coming up right now. All right, everybody, welcome back. We are here at our very first show, and I'm very grateful to have my co-hosts with me, Laura, Ryan, and Devin here. I guess we're just going to dive right in today, and we're going to talk about why we're doing this show, why we all decided to get together, and we want to make this. We don't want to be a bunch of insurance and financial nerds. We want to make this a little edgy and fun, right? So why don't we just dive in and we'll start with you, Laura. Why did we start this show in the first place? Because we actually have a pretty cool story as why we're doing this.
Yeah, definitely. So the reason that we started the show, at least for me personally, was I started talking to some business owners and started to try and find out other things other than just benefits, which is really my expertise, asking them about property and casualty, asking them about other aspects of their business to learn more about their business, what they were doing with their business, if there was any way that I could help. And I found that most of my business clients had either not really reviewed their relationships in a very long time, or that they had something happened and they weren't very happy with how it happened, but that's really the only person or relationship they had, so they just kept going with it. And I found that in studying how other property and casualty financial advisors or benefit advisors had been successful in the past was by working with trusted advisors. And I don't think that people are doing that as much today. This is maybe back more in the 80s when the internet wasn't as big. Yeah. You had to do a lot more face-to-face. I know stories of people who just took out the phone book and would call. And so it was truly a word of mouth. That's how you got business. So you had to rely on other trusted advisors. And I've really found that bringing that back, maybe I can't help a client with benefits, but by finding someone who I think's best in class, who is going to do things the way that I think they should be done, would be able to help that business owner.
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about this on the way over today, and I was just thinking about the frustration that we often experience. And this is really, this show and our whole network that we're building was born out of our experience with other clients. And that the bottom line is you shouldn't be settling for mediocrity. And I find that when we're assessing a client relationship, when we go in there and we look at what we call our fortress of relationships, because that's really what it is. It's about creating value with all those relationships that you have with your quote vendors. But really what we want to do is, and this is what made me so like what you guys are doing too, is talking about changing and disrupting an industry, right? It's so static and so, so straight-laced that you don't really have any relationships that are really based on that value proposition. You get really comfortable with those. And for me, it's frustrating because you shouldn't settle for mediocrity. I mean, what have you guys experienced?
I know one thing is that when Ryan and I came up in the business, what they told you to do was go out and have 3 or 4 meetings a week with the COI. Go out and meet 2 CPAs, meet 3 attorneys, whatever it is. And so you have all these different connections. Yep. But you don't really go deep with anybody. And I felt that was a problem not only for us, but also for the business owner, because you have all these different people, and one person you're referring this way, another person referring that way. And really having like a team of advisors around you, that trusted advisor network, I think is so beneficial for our own practice and also ultimately the business owner kind of know like the full comprehensive service that they're going to get.
Yeah. And by the way, you guys should all see the way we are in our meetings together, because we actually bust each other's chops quite a bit. So one of the things we also want to be is we want to be ourselves. And so we might say some things that maybe don't everybody's going to agree with. Like maybe you need to fire your vendor or your trusted advisor or someone who you think has a vested interest in your success. But one of the things is we all agreed we're going to be raw, we're going to be honest, and tell you straight up what we think and what we've experienced personally. And Ryan, I know you feel the same way too.
Yeah, I think that we kind of live in a world where people are very much status quo. And you mentioned disruption earlier. One of the things that we did when we started this partnership was looked at ways that we were going to bring our businesses together and what that would look like and how that would be non-traditional approach. And traditional is good in some industries, but I think in ours, the way the world has changed, things are commoditized now. And Laura mentioned internet, technology. It's tough. I mean, it's tough out there. You, as a business owner too, when you're getting started and you're building something, you're getting pulled 15 different ways. And, you started your business for a reason. There's something that you enjoy doing. And so once that starts to gain traction and you start to become successful, you want to focus on that because those are the things that are making you money. And just like in any successful business, you put things in a silo and you have departments that handle certain things. And when you don't have the capacity as a small business to hire an entire department to handle your benefits or your financial aspect or outsource CFO, for example. And there's so many services and people like us out there that people just get bogged down by it and they push it to the side and they move on to what's going to make them money immediately today. And then we come in on the back end and have to clean stuff up. So, I mean, when we come into a meeting in a relationship with people, we have to be real and raw in a client meeting too. And say, look,
just be upfront and to say, hey, your business right now is not benefiting from this relationship that's stale. And, maybe you've been with somebody for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's almost like, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, I know I have as talking to clients is, I feel almost like I'm getting taken advantage of because, this relationship has been here. But you said something great. Business owners, when you start your business, you are so focused on what you do best, and you're kind of trusting and relying on other professionals who maybe have been with you since the beginning, but maybe you're outgrowing. You're outgrowing that relationship, and they don't have the capacity or the capability of taking care of your business the way you really need it to be done, and also having a team around you who have a vested interest in your success. So I think you're hitting on a really interesting point and something that we really want to drive home with other business owners, and that is you really need to rethink the way you're looking at your relationships that you have so that those relationships your business is benefiting from those relationships, and you can focus on what you do best and have those trusted advisors who are really advising you in the right direction. One of the things I noticed, and I want you guys to comment on this, is when we're assessing a relationship with a client and we want to make sure there's a good fit, right? And I know you guys all agree the same. The one thing that I noticed is there's no communication going on between the financial advisor, the attorney, the CPA, the benefits, the insurance, all these different moving parts that Ryan, you talked about. There doesn't seem to be that synergy with everybody being on the same page and basically saying, this is the direction of the business. This is what my goals are as a business owner. These are my goals. This is where I want to go. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Laura, you want to touch on that?
We actually just had this conversation with a CPA 2 days ago that Ryan, Devin, and I met with, where basically Ryan made this great point that said advisors are afraid to come to the table together. They're afraid maybe because of competition. They're afraid that maybe they're not going to have the expertise in something other than what they're good at. And it almost creates an opposition for the business owner.
I just don't understand. I don't, for some reason, I cannot wrap my brain around why that happens, because doesn't it make sense for everybody to kind of be on the same page with the strategic direction and where business is going? It just doesn't make any sense to me, right?
I think people are very protective of their relationships and their clients too, which if you're working with somebody and you're coming in and it's been their client for 10, 15, 20 years and you're coming in as the new person into that team, they want to sometimes prove that they know that client, they know everything about them. When we come with new, fresh ideas, maybe even if it might be good for the client, it might be like, oh no, that's not going to work. So having that communication, like you talked about, Rob, is so key to be able to communicate beforehand, not just sitting down at the table the first time, where the whole trusted advisor network is meeting for the first time, and having that communication before you talk to the client and make sure everybody's on the same page. So it kind of eliminates all friction when you're actually at the table with the business owner.
You're right, and you're so right, because this is one of the big reasons why when we all connected with each other, we're experiencing similar frustration, even among, if you've been working with a client for a long time, you're like, I'd never met your CPA. Yep. Like I've never met your attorney. And if you're talking about critical legal documents or agreements or things, like if you're a contractor, like I know we all have a lot of experience working with contractors. If you're a contractor, that there's a lot of legal issues. There's, there's obviously agreements and things that need to be in place. Everyone needs to understand what those implications are, whether you're an insurance person, you're an attorney, you're a CPA, those things have implications. And doesn't it make sense for everybody to work together and be on the same page?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a cause and effect to anything in business. It's something that you have to understand how other areas of planning and advice, not just in our world, but in your world and in Laura's world, how it affects the day-to-day for a business owner. And I think people are afraid. It's more of the, going back to the traditional approach of not playing well in each other's sandbox. It
drives me nuts. I don't know.
It's very.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. You know what? It's very much. We experience it on a day-to-day basis, and just like we had that conversation the other day, it's just like people are scared, and it's a traditional sales approach, though. I mean, I think a lot of the older generation, and not to knock anyone that's in that generation, there are some great people in all of our areas of expertise that do a great job, but there are some people that are kind of set in their ways, and they have the old school sales hunter mentality, and their job is to go in, hunt, find the client, make a recommendation, maybe make a little money, and then they're out the door and they're on to their next client. So depending on what industry they're in, they're incentivized that way potentially too. And having a relationship with people has changed because, again, back to technology, all of our industries have become commoditized. You can find things on the internet. So what value are we really bringing to the table if all we're going to go do with them is come in and sell a product or a strategy?
Yep.
It doesn't carry a lot of weight in today's world. So.
No, you're 100% right. Devin, I want to touch on something interesting that we brought up when we were talking about this. How do you know if you have the right partners in your business? So if there's a business owner who's listening today, or even, maybe you're running a very successful business or company, how do you know if you have the right partners in place? And do you really consider them partners, or are they just vendors for you?
That's a great question, Rob. To really know you have the right partners is when a business owner can call somebody, text somebody, email somebody, and they feel like they're a friend and they can just talk nonstop about anything, rather than having somebody drop in once a year, twice a year, kind of see how the business is going and kind of taking that relationship to the next level, I think is key in being real with somebody. I think when there's no barriers and you can actually have a real conversation with your partner, that's when you have the trusted relationship that you need, where you're not afraid to really go after somebody if you need to, or do whatever it takes to do what's best for the business. I think a lot of times people have these relationships and they're afraid to talk about what they really need to talk about to get to that next step,
or to get stale.
Exactly.
You're getting comfortable. And I had 100%. I know you probably know this too. You get to a point where, and I know this happened to me. It's actually a true story. Is I hear time and time again, I only see my guy once a year at renewal time, or I only see my advisor when there's a problem. There's this mentality of being reactive as opposed to being proactive. Absolutely. And really in this day and age, to truly be a high performer and to have a successful business model, a consultative approach like we have, you really need to separate yourself from everybody else. And the way to really do that is to have massive value. And that's one of our goals of this show, is to create and give out massive value, because, frankly, it's one of those things. If you're listening to this, you want to be able to say, hey, wait a minute, I just had a gold nugget and that was great advice. I'm gonna actually execute that in my business tomorrow or right now. because it's good sound advice. So Laura, you also experienced this kind of thing too, where the relationship is sort of, I see you once a year, or how do you measure the performance of someone's advisor? Or in your world, it's in the benefits world, how do you measure how someone is performing, how a partner is performing for a business?
So I think I would go back to what Devin said about being that first call, being the call before things go wrong. I know that I started to feel like a partner when I was getting calls for something went wrong, and it wasn't necessarily benefits, but they weren't getting the advice from another partner, and they were coming to me because they felt that I had provided that proactive support to them, and I was in a position then to advise them to go out and find a new partner that they felt comfortable with that would do the same thing. I would say it can't really be measured in a number of touches or a number of times that you talk to the client, but it can be measured in...
That could be one of the metrics that a company could use, right?
It could.
As far as like, and I'll let you finish, but
yeah,
it's interesting you just brought that up because it gave me a thought of one of maybe the metrics you can use to measure how your trusted advisor is performing might be putting together some... like a sheet of, okay, these are the things, the deliverables, these are the things that are non-negotiables, these are the things that I absolutely expect of this relationship. To me, doesn't it make sense when you start off the relationship, you want to set the expectations both ways because it works both ways. It's not just a one-way street. Yeah. You, as the advisor, also have to set the tone and the expectations for that client relationship.
Well, it's just like in your personal relationships, not just business relationships.
Uh-oh, here we go.
You demand.
Oh boy.
But you demand a level from your partner, right? That only you would accept. So you want to translate that into business. So when I have that questionnaire, I know you have that questionnaire. Yep. I know Devin and Ryan does. And sometimes my goal when I go into a prospect isn't even to say, hey, hire me. It's to say, hey, look at this questionnaire, and if your benefits person or your PNC guy or your financial advisor isn't doing all these things, try and call them to the table, call them to action to do those things.
Got to call them out. I mean,
yeah.
Sometimes that has to happen where you have to call out. You have to call someone on their, you know what? Because otherwise, if you don't, so and this brings up another interesting thing that we did talk about. We talked about the emotional connection that people have with their advisors, and it's so interesting. And also very frustrating for me because you can have somebody who's doing absolutely the most mediocre, and you and I, we're all seeing it, right? But the business owner is like so emotionally connected to that person for some reason that they are so unwilling to either tell them the truth about what's really going on and what they're thinking, or number two, it's like, I'm so afraid to let you go. How hard is it to fire somebody, right? Yeah. You sometimes have to have that tough conversation. But like Laura said, if you think about even personal relationships, you don't want to wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm just kind of satisfied and it's kind of ho-hum. It's like, no, you want to get jazzed and excited about how this person's going to contribute in a positive way to your life, just like a business, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of metrics and things that you mentioned that you can use to match up in profitable relationships, financially related, but I think going back to the emotional connection, I think what we see as a challenge for a lot of these people that don't want to fire or move on from the people that they've been working with is they're afraid of the work that comes along with doing that.
Yeah, because it's a real pain in the rear.
They know that they don't have time. If it's not a coordinated effort, it makes it much harder to do that. And so one of the things that we try to do is provide that concierge level service to our clients where we're saying, hey, we know this is going to be difficult, but it may be a good thing to rip the Band-Aid. And we're proving throughout the course of that process with people like yourselves is we're going to give you a coordinated effort. So this is a seamless transition if you need to make that. Even if it's not with us, let us help you get the pieces in place. And I think ultimately it comes down to that. Humans are weird. In terms of like,
no, you said it perfectly. You're like, sometimes you got to tear off the Band-Aid. But it's like, how long are you going to let this thing bleed before you you realize they're like, hey, this just isn't working anymore. You know, you have to have the tough conversation where it's like, all right, I think we might have to have the breakup conversation, and that's not always an easy one, right?
Yeah, it's always tough to do something different. It's like, you know, we do a lot of studying of behavioral finance. It's a big thing that's merged in our field, and you learn something new every day about people and the way they behave and how that centers around their decision making. And it's just funny. I mean, there's crazy statistics out there, even with just like creating new habits, going on a diet. You know, it's like, 21, 30 days, something like that it takes to create a habit. So think about that. If you want to eat right or work out or go to the gym, that's something that you have to do consistently for a really long period of time when you really haven't been motivated to do that for potentially years. And I think the same is true when you get in a status quo relationship in business. It's like, it's there. It's a hard relationship to walk away from. So the benefit really has to outweigh what that potential, whatever that obstacle or that objection is that's there. And so it's our job in a sense too. We kind of have to dig a little deeper and become a little more of a, you know, I joke with clients all the time and say we're economists and psychologists at the same time. So here's the logic behind it, but how does that make you feel?
Sometimes
like, kick your legs up on the couch.
It's a Dr. Phil moment.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good segue. One of the things that we also want to share with our listeners and anyone who's watching this today is we're not going to always just be talking about this kind of stuff. You brought up talk about habits, and you know we're going to have some special guests that come on, and we're going to talk about psychology. We're going to talk about business success. We're going to talk about all those things. Again, it's all about creating value for the people who are watching us or who are listening to us, and maybe they're going to take one thing from what we're talking about and execute. That's another one I want to talk about, just touch on real briefly, is execution. Because you can talk about, you know, that you have those situations where you talk about doing something and it's just like, you know, it's a definition of insanity. It keeps coming up again and again and again. And it's like, at some point you got to pull the trigger on making the decision. And that's sometimes, it's emotional. It sometimes can be a difficult decision to make a switch or a move. But at the end of the day, it's the best thing for the business. For the long term and success of that business is just to you got to pull the trigger and make it happen.
So we had a great conversation yesterday, Ryan and I, all about implementation. We were talking about how important it is. You can have all these great ideas, but nothing really counts unless you implement it. We came across a great quote. It says, "Knowledge is not power. Implementation is power." Yeah. You have all these great things, doing all these great ideas, which I'm very guilty of.
Yes. Analysis paralysis.
I'm a visionary.
Does that also come with the pink socks?
Exactly. Which I'm not wearing today.
All right, boy.
Next time. But
you knew I was going to throw the first punch, right?
Of course.
All right.
But if you can have these great ideas and you're writing all this great stuff down, but if you're not implementing it and making it a reality, what good is it?
It's called analysis paralysis. Absolutely. You just can sit there and just keep going over the same thing, and you're like, you know what? I'm not taking any action on this thing. Why not?
Absolutely.
So you got to get to the core. And this goes back to making decisions about who you're working with and really changing the psychology of how you look at relationships and really referring to them as trusted advisor partnerships, not, oh, this is just a vendor of mine, right? We want to change the way that psychologically in the language that people are using, and really, because when you change that, it just shifts the whole relationship. I mean, you know what you've experienced that too, right?
Yeah, I would actually even say that when I first got into my career, I was guilty of doing it myself.
Yeah, I think we all were. Right?
Go talk to your accountant about this. That's not my expertise.
Yeah.
Or go ask your financial guy. I really don't get into that. And I think changing who is your accountant? What are they doing for you? Have you discussed this? Have you already had these conversations? If not, would you like to be introduced to someone? Takes it to that new level of, I am your trusted partner, and I care about what that person is saying to you, because it does relate to my vertical in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on something. It's actually a really good segue to talk about the trusted advisor network. So one of the things that we're doing is we're creating, because that question does come up. Hey, who do you recommend for a CPA, or who do you recommend who specializes in working with contractors or other small businesses? it helps to have that trusted relationship where you can go to your trusted advisor and say, hey, listen, I'm having this problem, having this issue. Who do you recommend? And that was really the genesis of how we started our network and building that. Again, I always go back to the analogy. I love the thought and the analogy of building your fortress, right? Because that's what you spend all these years growing your business, and it's like it becomes like your child, where everything your blood, sweat, and tears has been put into this thing, and you want to protect it. But you also want to have that fortress of relationships that you trust, because you're really, really good at swinging a hammer. You're really, really good at looking at legal documents or whatever your business is, or running a restaurant. Whatever that thing is, you're really, really good at that, and you need to sometimes give up control. So why don't you guys touch on like how difficult it is for some clients to just give up control?
Well,
because that's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah, I'll talk to you from experience, because we just kind of went through this with our business. And Devin, being in the insurance world as the chief operating officer of a local insurance brokerage, like I was growing a practice as a solo practitioner, basically. And it's a hard thing to do. Is like I got really good at certain things, and I knew that I was really bad at certain things, but I kicked the can down the road for a while and went through this explosive growth in my business personally that it was challenging. I mean, you get to a level of capacity. And so one of the things that I had to come to the realization of is that this was not profitable for me anymore to be all things in the business, to be the CEO, CFO, marketing person, sales guy, service on the back end.
You're making the point right now for your own experience, your own business.
I mean, this is what we went through ourselves. So bringing Devin into the practice and actually forming our partnership was critical for me, just to gain, one, capacity, but two, offload some of the things that I know that I wasn't good at. And
That's
right. It took me a long time to get there, though, right?
That's right.
I mean, I got to a point where I almost started going backwards before I said, okay, the metrics are speaking to me, and now I have to really make a shift. And so bringing that and forming our partnership was valuable. It was a valuable experience for me, and now it's always nice to be an entrepreneur and to go through these things, because now you can speak to it when your clients are
when you've actually done it.
Yeah. And so Devin was a big part of that, and he has helped tremendously just in our business and making it more efficient and kind of running the way that it should on a daily basis.
I feel like Devin's going to jump in right now and
he should. I
say something cheeky or I don't know. I can't wait. I'm on the edge of my seat here. I just can't wait to chime in.
He's probably surprised I said something nice about it.
Shocking.
So Devin, you want to have something to say about that?
No, I just think one of the things that a lot of business owners and leaders struggle with is delegation.
Yeah.
You start off as a one-man show, or you start this thing and you're so protective of it. You bring somebody in and you don't necessarily want to give them, you want to give them some things, but you don't want to do the things that could possibly mess up your business. You don't want to show them all the numbers. You don't want to put them in this type of client because they might say something wrong. And that stuff in the end hurts you.
Yep.
You're not giving your employees, your trusted partners, the right resources to get better and make your business better. Because when you do those delegations things to do what you're really good at, because nobody's great at everything.
That's right.
If you really just focus on what you're great at and what you're best at, and really delegate and find the specialists and the experts in the areas you're not good at, and truly trust them, like really, really trust them to do what they do and not have to be over the shoulder all the time, business will explode.
Agreed. So as we bring things full circle from, and I want to touch on each of you to share like one. Well, let's walk away with one gold nugget, something that somebody who's listening today can walk away and say, I'm gonna actually execute on this one thing. What one piece of wisdom or expertise that you can share from your experience that people can walk away with around this whole topic? And as we're launching our show, this is one of the areas of value that we want to offer is you walk away with something that you can actually execute on and to help make your business even better. Laura, you want to share?
Sure. I would say ask yourself the question of, do you only call your vendors when things are on fire, or do you feel that your partners have put in measures to avoid those fires?
Great.
I would ask yourself that.
Awesome. Ryan?
I think, one thing that I would say would be a takeaway from this is get all of your people into a room, whether, if you do that on a regular basis or if you've never done that. I think a call to action would be to bring everyone to the table and figure out if they can actually work together. Because as business grows and as you grow as a person, you're going to need those people more and more, and you're going to need to delegate. Because
you stole my thunder, man. That was the one I was going to bring up. I was going to be like, I have this great idea I'm going to share with everybody today, and it's going to be like, you guys have to get together with your trusted partners and relationships at least once a year, which actually is probably the best advice, because I know for a fact not very many business owners are doing this, but that's the one thing, if you take away, is at least once a year. It might cost you a few shekels to do it, but once a year, get all of your trusted advisors together in one room. And I don't care if you guys do a lunch and learn or just get together and talk about the strategy, where the business is going in the next year, how, anticipating what things might be coming up in the coming years, planned capital investments that you're going to make in the business, or investments in equipment, or whatever the case may be. So everybody's on the same page, because everyone has unique ideas, right? Your attorney might have, hey, you might want to consider this. Your financial guy might say, hey, you might want to consider this. Or your insurance person might say, hey, whoa, you have to think about this particular thing. If you're going to buy this building, or if you're going to invest in this company, you're going to buy a company and grow. You guys all need to be on the same page with how that's going to happen and all the moving parts, because that's a critical piece.
It's a shift in thought process for the small to mid-sized business too. You're taking your group and your cluster of vendors and you're turning them into a board of directors, which is how all the biggest Fortune 500 company, largest corporations in the world, that's how they operate.
So any small business could do that.
They could.
It doesn't matter how big you are.
And they wouldn't have to pay them. There's no stock options involved. It's people that are getting paid to do their jobs and to have expertise. And all you're doing is asking them to come to the table and provide value, which is, I would argue what we all get paid to do. So.
And I would also argue everyone sitting at that table has a vested interest in your success. I don't think anyone really wants, I know there's a lot of lazy people out there, but I don't think anyone really consciously says like, hey, I'm just going to skate by. I mean, maybe some of you do, but I'd fire them actually if they had that mentality. But I don't think anyone's not thinking about that end result. The end result is we all want our clients to be successful, right?
Absolutely.
Financially, operationally, strategically. We want to be able to give them the tools, the resources, and the expertise to help make a positive impact on their business. And Devin, did you have one thing that you like that really stands out in your mind that would be a takeaway?
Like, go off what you guys were talking about. It's really just to audit them. Get everybody in the room and really look at your trusted advisors, the people around you that are helping you grow your business, and just audit everybody. Do these two people work well together? Do they know each other? And just really take an audit and the inventory of everybody you're working with. See what they really provide to you. If you don't think they're providing you value, you got to have that tough conversation and look for somebody new.
So I'll play devil's advocate. I'll say, hey, Devin, I don't have the time. Let's say I'm a super busy business owner and I'm spinning 10 different plates. I don't have the time to do that. What would you say to a business owner right now who says, I don't have the time to do that kind of stuff and it sounds great, but in practice, in reality, it just isn't going to work? What would you say? I mean, it would actually hurt you not to do that, right?
Absolutely. Once again, it comes down to delegation. The things that you're busy with, do you enjoy doing them? All the stuff that you're doing right now, do you enjoy? Are those things you truly love about your business?
Yeah.
If they say yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, great.
That's great.
That's good stuff. And we just want to thank everybody as we wrap up the show today. This is our first one. Hopefully you found some value. We also are going to provide you with some links in the description below and provide you some links to our websites. So in case you want to learn more about each of us, and as we're building the Trusted Advisor Network, we're actually going to be launching our own website. And by the time we air the show, it's probably going to be live. So hopefully, and so we're going to have a lot of tools and resources available. So you can also sign up for. We're going to have some free information, some resources for everyone. So join. There's going to be a spot for you to join our newsletter or our email list. where you can basically, we're going to be putting out some good stuff. We'll put out the show notes and some other things that we kind of gather from each of our shows that we do, which again is all centered around the whole idea of giving massive value, because that's why we're doing the show. Sure. It's, this isn't going to be shameless self-promotion. It's going to actually be, and we're going to be rousing each other from time to time. So we want to make it fun, but we are really grateful to even have this opportunity that people are going to be joining us in this mission and this bigger purpose. So thanks, guys. We look forward to, stay tuned for the next show, because we're going to have some good stuff. We're going to have some great guests and some incredible topics coming up in the next show, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.